So welcome all, welcome to this session with the excellent Caitriona Heffernan. Caitriona, thanks so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Caitriona?
Yeah, sure, pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. So my name is Caitriona Heffernan. I am the Innovation Programme Lead at Ireland's House Women and Infants Directorate, and I'm also the HSE Lead for the Spark Innovation Programme, and that's an arm of the HSE that's there to promote and support frontline healthcare workers who are interested in working in innovation, and we support them to help to get their ideas over the line, essentially. So that's who I am. My background is I worked for 17 years as a clinician in the NHS and in the HSE as a speech and language therapist. And I suppose I've always been really interested in quality improvement and in innovation. Probably before I knew that that's what I was interested in, I was just always looking for the next thing that I might get interested in improving or making better, or wondering why we do something in a certain way and trying to restructure services or redefine the way that we deliver services for patients. And then I suppose I happened upon quality improvement first, and then through that became really interested in innovation. I went on the first course for innovation in healthcare that's delivered by Trinity College Dublin, and I suppose that lit the fire for me then to know that there was work to be done in this space. There was actually jobs that somebody might have working in innovation. So I actually pitched my role to my boss at Ireland's House because he had sponsored me to do the course. So I kind of came back and said, look, you've trained me up, you sent me off, what are you going to do with me? And so we created this role, and I'm very proud of it because it's the first role of its type in a HSE hospital in Ireland. So it's very gratifying to know that, but also it's really challenging because there aren't a lot of people working in a similar area within the health space in Ireland, at least in the HSE hospitals, because they can be a little bit more limited in terms of what we're able to do compared to voluntary hospitals, just in terms of funding and the governance and things like that. But so far it's been really great, and then started working for the Spark Innovation Programme earlier this year, only about 2 months ago, after having a lot of kind of working with them over the previous year, and so now I work for them as well. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wow, busy woman. And Caitriona, it never, I suppose, each time I meet you, I'm always amazed your passion for the health system, and that the health system can be really different. It can be a lot different. It can be improved, etc. And then, busy and all as you are, you went on this program. Why this program?
Well, I went in with a much more narrow view or focus around why I wanted to do it than what I actually got from it during the programme. So I suppose I was introduced to design thinking as a concept when I did my original course in innovation in healthcare at Trinity, and we just had one module on it, but it really blew my mind. We did a really simple activity, the design a wallet activity actually, and I was just really fascinated by how the insights that you can gather from somebody through a simple activity and trying to dive a little bit deeper into their needs, how it changes what you had a preconception about what you might develop for them based on what their needs were. And I think it appealed to me because before my healthcare background, I actually studied drama and I worked in the theatre world. And I think I've always loved that idea of understanding a character. When I was playing a character, like who were they, what motivated them, what was important to them. And so I suppose it kind of maybe allowed me to kind of touch into that little part of my interest. But I suppose it switched a light on for me around how we design services in healthcare, because we talk a lot about how difficult it is to get projects over the line, how difficult it is to get them funded, how difficult it is to put in implementation plans. And actually, probably the most difficult thing is actually the sustainability of them. And I think often sustainability is really affected by the fact that what you've developed so beautifully and what you've implemented so well isn't actually what the user at the other end needs. So whether that's the patient that you're designing for, or whether it's a process that you're designing obviously for patient care, but is delivered by people at the front line, and that if it doesn't work for them, it can't be sustainable. And you see that all the time. And that's partly what makes healthcare workers such great innovators, is that they're natural hackers. They hack systems every day. They hack equipment every day, trying to make it work a little bit better, or knowing where the fat is, knowing where the bits that aren't functional are, and they ignore them, or obviously within governance structures and safely, not putting anybody at risk, but the bits that are kind of surplus to requirements, they fall away, they stop using them. And it really kind of made me think about what might happen if we actually design services from another perspective, if we looked at who's going to use them at the end of the day, what their primary needs were. And then obviously that has to be framed onto what the HSE or what any organisation is able to supply. But at least having the patient or the user, be that, as I say, a patient or a staff member at the centre of it, I think is a much better course to try to go to in order to kind of ensure that sustainability at the other end. So when I went on to the course, I just wanted to learn how to do design thinking. It was very narrow. I wanted to know I wanted the rule book, I wanted the toolkit, and then I was just going to, arrive back into work and just, start delivering it out. And I suppose what I encountered was very different in a good way. And I suppose the course itself is split so that the first half of the year you are looking at the design thinking process, and you do get the opportunity to walk through it step by step. There is a time limit on it, which gives that kind of good element of pressure, or maybe even a new element of pressure that certainly traditionally we wouldn't be used to in the HSE, where projects particularly can tend to run on for long periods of time. So it was really interesting to me to encounter a very complex project that we essentially didn't choose ourselves. It was given to us, which again I think is a good thing, because if you're going to work as a facilitator, you have to deal with what arrives on your table, what's the priority for somebody else, and to be put with a group of people that you didn't know, with very diverse backgrounds, different skill sets, different ways of working, often working in English as a second language, for instance. There were lots of different kind of dynamics going on in our group, and to deliver a project over a short period of time was just a really fantastic experience. But I think what it threw up for me was that, yeah, you could go back to work with a kind of a cookie cutter version of design thinking, and I think there's merit in that. There's value in it as a kind of as a way of maybe igniting people's interest in doing something in a slightly different way, and it's energizing, and it's a nice way of working. But I think what came up the most for me was the intermissions between the kind of identified or the defined sections of the design thinking methodology, that it was what was inside in those pieces that was most challenging, and will continue to be challenging with every project that you deliver. So the stakeholder engagement, you're really getting into the core insights, developing your personas, the challenges of working in groups, all of those pieces. So yeah, the end of the first semester, I loved design thinking less, because it wasn't as easy as I thought it was. But then I also loved it more because I suppose if I'm really honest, I like kind of shiny things. I like buying the book. And so I'm glad in a way that it wasn't that cookie cutter version, because again, if we're talking about sustainability, I think it would have been something I'd come back to work and use as a kind of a workshop as opposed to a way of working. So certainly I remember people talking about the design thinking mindset at the start of the year, and I understood, in theory, linguistically, what that meant. But now I have much more of an understanding of what that means, and it's more about how you view something, the lens through which you look at a problem or look at a way of finding a solution, as opposed to necessarily individual segments on a linear path from A to Z. And I think that was really confirmed for me then, and reaffirmed in the second semester, because whatever you thought you were going to get away with by taking the not the easy route, but the more commercial route around design thinking, around the way that it can sometimes be sold, there was no hiding from it then in the second semester with the action design research project. And for me, that really solidified design thinking as a way of working, because it really brought that rigor that, anywhere that I felt in design thinking that I thought that decision was a bit arbitrary and I'm not really sure, it seemed a bit convenient. We went with the thing we liked, that was all taken away through the action design research process. And, you really had to be very dedicated to following the problem, dedicated to following the insights that you were gathering from the people that you were working with. So I suppose all in all, I just felt it was a really great package, with one semester really complementing the other well. Now at the other end, I can see that. I can see what the where the alignment was and the interaction between the two parts. So yeah, that's a very long answer to your question, Paudie.
What a fantastic answer. I'm going to actually, with your permission, use even what you just said to explain maybe to people coming on to future runs of the program what that it feels like to be on a program like this. And I love the way as well, Caitriona, you call out that you can see it as workshops, tools, and whatever else, but it's more a way of working, and I think you call that out really, really well. It's more a mindset, the way you go about things. Caitriona, I'm really intrigued because you have been working on the front line for many years within the healthcare sector, and your project was directly about trying to mobilize people on the front line to innovate more, to become entrepreneurs. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the project?
Yeah, sure. So I suppose it made sense to try to find a project that had real meaning for me and that also would affect change. And I suppose if we're just to go to the other end of it, now I've totally, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid around action design research, because now I don't understand why you would ever research anything without trying to affect change while you're doing it. So it's become even more important to me now at the other end to see how it can impact and how it can affect your work. So basically, yeah, I decided to do my project around how we might help frontline healthcare workers to essentially be more innovative and to get more engaged in innovation and to sustain their involvement in innovation. So it's almost, I can almost not remember what the original idea was for the project, because I suppose it changed so much as it moved along. But I definitely at the start it was very broad, and that was because it was broad. It's a complex problem space. What do we mean by them being more innovative? Is it a mindset? Is it their how they think about their work? Is it about their awareness of the duality that could be in their role of delivering healthcare on the one hand, and then thinking about how we can deliver healthcare better as part of their role? Is it time that they have to access in order to be able to get involved in innovation? Is it education? Is it permission? Is it confidence? Is it a lack of a fear of failure? All of these components all feed into how frontline workers can be more innovative. So I suppose the first part of my project was to figure out where I was going to land, and it was really challenging because part of the challenge with an action design research project, or rather at the time it certainly was that you have to go in there day one with some fashion of a solution, some artifact. And that was really the opposite of what we had done in the first semester, which was really get to the root of the problem before you even start thinking about how you might come to a solution. And so it was really contradictory and quite jarring to arrive in January and suddenly be expected to deliver this solution into your workspace. And there's all the things that kind of go with that about, I would say I'm a bit of a perfectionist about how I present my work. And it was really personally challenging for me to deliver something half-baked. But there were lots of parts of the course that really supported me to be able to do that, having artists in residence and, other elements, other influences, people in my early semester course who were artists and who worked very differently to me. And, we still got projects over the line. So there was clearly value in their way of working as well. So all of those things kind of gave me the confidence to go for it and produce an artifact. And so I gathered a group of what I would call early adopters, I suppose, people who are interested in working in innovation, who are frontline workers in the HSE, asked them if they'd be part of the project. They were really interested in getting involved, and then essentially went to them with this really basic hand-drawn solution saying, look, what do you think? Do you think this would be of any use to you if you were to use it in your day-to-day working? And first of all, I was really surprised how easily they accepted a really half-baked product. And now I think it was really helpful to give a half-baked product, because I think they were far less worried about critiquing it or taking it seriously as a finished product, or feeling the need to kind of that confirmation bias that, obviously it looks like you put a lot of work into it. I better tell you some nice things about it. And so they were really up for kind of critiquing what I was offering. So essentially, I kind of went in based on my initial research that they needed help around being able to identify what might be a good idea for innovation. And I gave them two different options. One was a website with lots of resources, and the other was a tool essentially where you could fill in the tool in order to be able to help you to come to a conclusion about whether an idea was worth pursuing. And 100% of my participants were orientated towards that part. And that was interesting as well then, right out of the gate for me, because working in the Spark program, we were already thinking about how we might design what we deliver in order to support healthcare workers, and that certainly hadn't occurred to us, that they needed this tool to help them to make decisions in the first instance. So essentially that's what my project turned out to be, which was a framework or a canvas for frontline workers to use in order to kind of flesh out their idea for innovation, to see does it hold water. And I guess there was the project itself, to be honest, became less important than the learnings that I got from it. And in a way, it's almost like it was it's a launch board now into, I could choose a number of areas that came up that were really, triggered interest for me, that I thought, oh, I didn't anticipate that, or you've all said that, and that wasn't something I realised was out there in the mainframe, and that we might look at again, because certainly, a canvas wasn't completely innovative. There are plenty of business model canvases out there. I've used them myself, and there's no doubt I was kind of influenced by that. That's something that came to my mind when they talked about needing this framework for assessment. But again, through the process of research and through engaging with them, what's available in the business model canvas didn't really meet their need, because clinicians are not business people, so they don't tend to understand customer segments or other kind of business lingo that goes with the business model canvases. So that's what was created, and that's what we worked through. But in the process of doing that, uncovered a lot of insights around the healthcare workers themselves, but also us as an organisation and how we operate, and other, I suppose, players in the space as well that help innovation within the healthcare space, and how different we feel around what merits a good idea. Some of it's more commercial, it's interesting.
And that's one of the things that really amazed me, Caitriona, to know. Yes, you went in, you were creating an artifact, and that artifact had value, but I was really intrigued by what you were learning about how frontline staff may or may not be able to innovate. And I think actually that goes back to an earlier point that action design research is about solving problems, but also creating insights that allow others to solve other problems in the future. And I think the insights you drew out, about that lack of confidence sometimes in the frontline service, the lack of time, but also the need and maybe the issues around framing, reframing problems, validating that it's the right problem, and then having the confidence to bring that forward. I think really, really powerful insights that I've no doubt will be of value to you, to Spark, to the HSE going forward. Caitriona, it's been a fantastic session with you. I'd like to thank you again for giving your time. You're a very busy woman, and hopefully we'll see more of you again back on the programme, maybe coming in and maybe sharing some of those fantastic insights with people that do the project and the programme in the future.
Sure, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Foddy.
Thank you, Caitriona.